Hey, this is Mike from the Run Testers, and this is our first run review of the Samsung Galaxy Watch 5 Pro. So here's a quick rundown of the key things you need to know about the Samsung Galaxy Watch 5 Pro and what it offers runners. Unlike the Galaxy Watch 5, it comes in just a single 45mm case size and is priced from £429 or $449 for the Bluetooth only model. It's also £479 and $499 for the added LTE connectivity to use it without your phone. It's for Android users only and runs on the latest version of Google's Wear OS with Samsung's UI overlaid on top, giving you access to the Google Play Store to track runs with third-party apps. In terms of design, there's a titanium case, enhanced sapphire crystal, and a bezel that slightly protrudes to better protect the display. Unlike previous Samsung watches, there is no rotating bezel. There's a 1.4-inch 450 by 450 resolution Super AMOLED touchscreen display and two physical buttons to take control of the smartwatch. That screen can be set to always-on mode. Features-wise, you're getting built-in GPS, an optical heart rate sensor with a larger surface area to improve accuracy. There's dedicated modes for outdoor and treadmill running with a running coach that's designed to help increase your speed. There's two data screens to show off your stats like duration, distance, pace, calories, average cadence and average pace. You can also view heart rate and capture the same advanced running metrics as the Galaxy Watch 4. You do now also have the ability to create interval workouts from the run settings menu before you hit that run tracking button. Samsung includes the ability to upload GPX route files and follow maps, get turn-by-turn navigation and use a trackback feature. These features are primarily designed for cyclists and hikers and is only available on the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro. Battery life on the Watch 5 Pro isn't stated by Samsung on its website, but we were told to expect 80 hours in smartwatch mode and 20 hours of GPS battery life. So just a few notes on the design and what I've kind of found with the Samsung Galaxy Watch 5 Pro. Now this is essentially replacing the Samsung Galaxy Watch 4 Classic model, which it was more of a kind of classic watch style design ultimately. It had that kind of big rotating physical bezel, which isn't here anymore. This Watch 5 Pro feels more in line with what we've got with the Watch 5 and the Galaxy Watch 4. So it's a little bit more simple, I'd say, a little bit more minimalist in terms of what you've got. There's a few things or elements that Samsung has changed for the Watch 5 Pro in comparison to the Watch 5 to kind of give it a bit more, suitability in terms of using it for outdoor tracking. I think the main thing that stands out is that you've got this bezel that kind of raises over the screen a little bit to kind of offer ultimately a little bit more protection of that display. Now it is a bigger case than what you get on the Galaxy Watch 5. So there's two models for the Galaxy Watch 5. You've just got one model for the Watch 5 Pro. This is, but this ultimately has the same size screen as the biggest Galaxy Watch 5. It's a Super AMOLED display. Samsung makes some of the best smartwatch displays. That doesn't really change as far as I can see with the Watch 5 Pro. Ultimately, you are still getting two physical buttons on the sides. In terms of that software, in terms of what you're getting, it is still Wear OS. It's the latest version of Google's Wear OS, and then you've got Samsung's kind of UI on top of that. It doesn't feel massively different from what I've experienced on the Galaxy Watch 4 so far in terms of what you get on this watch and how you get around. But from a design perspective, it's been, it's fine. I don't think it's the most kind of, groundbreaking look in terms of design. It's nice enough. It's kind of a minimalist kind of style watch case in terms of what you're getting. You are getting a different watch strap for the Watch 5 Pro, so it's called a D buckle essentially, which I have found a little bit fiddly to kind of get a really good fit. I'll show on video kind of how the strap for me is kind of, almost kind of pokes out a little bit, even though I've got a nice kind of secure fit with it. So it's a little bit fiddly. It is more secure, I would say, probably. You can change out the straps as well. It's pretty easy to do, and Samsung offer a lot of kind of their own official straps, and you can go and get third-party ones. You'll find loads on Amazon and places like eBay as well. So yeah, from a design point of view, it's been absolutely fine in kind of my time using it day to day, and a little bit of running that I've done with it as well. It's not an amazing looking watch. It's pretty smart looking. It's pretty simple in terms of the look Samsung has gone here, which I haven't got a major problem with. Feels a little bit more similar to the Galaxy Watch 4 in terms of what you're getting in terms of the design, and the Watch 5. And yeah, if you want that rotating bezel, that's not there anymore. But ultimately, I just don't think it makes that much sense on Wear OS where it did on Tizen's and Samsung's Tizen OS operating system, where the rotating bezel was really kind of built into that experience. Where I think with Wear OS it doesn't feel the same. So if you wanted that, it's not there. I don't think it's a massively kind of a big issue. So yeah, design point of view, pretty simple, pretty basic, but feels nicely built. A nice looking Samsung watch, I would say, and one that feels well built, and for me has been comfortable so far to wear day in, day out, and for my run tracking too. So in terms of those route uploading, mapping and navigation features that you get on the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro, they are exclusive to the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro, so you don't get them on the Galaxy Watch 5. Now, as I understand it, and the reason why that isn't the case, having been to the briefings with Samsung, is that it's down to the battery life and the capacity of battery that you get on the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro compared to the Watch 5. So ultimately, if you're using those mapping and navigation features, it's going to drain the battery life more. And as I'll get into my kind of initial battery life thoughts, that is definitely the case that I've seen in comparison to tracking without it. And in terms of that support, right now you have got the ability, or it's kind of designed for hiking and cycling ultimately, which it's odd that it doesn't have dedicated modes for trail running or running in general. It's really designed for hiking and cycling, so about giving you it focuses on elevation gain and those kind of bits of data, which I was able to use it for my runs, but ultimately it's not set up for runs. So what I had to do was find a GPX file, a route based on that kind of file format. Now you have to import that or sync it over to the watch from Samsung Health, the companion app. You can create that from existing kind of tracked activity, or you can create it through your typical kind of route building app, turn it to a GPX file and then import it and sync it over. So the way I did it, I created a route on Google Maps. I use kind of maps to GPX. There's a kind of website that you can kind of put that through. That will create the route for you. Then I synced it over reasonably easy enough, basically. Now when you go to that dedicated screen on the watch, it will show you the routes that have been uploaded. I could click on the full route, I could see it mapped out there, and essentially you just hit start and then you can start tracking. Now once you hit start, it will boot you into kind of that workout tracking, and then it starts to establish where your location is, which seems a bit odd. I mean, it feels like it should be establishing that location first before you start tracking the workout. Now once you get going and you start using it, and then the map is pretty detailed in terms of what you're getting. You can use the touch screen to kind of scroll around the screen. You can kind of expand, pinch to kind of zoom and expand into the route. There's a dedicated screen during, on those data fields to kind of look at the map. It will kind of vibrate when you need to turn. It will give you kind of a countdown in terms of meters and when you need to, go left or right, if you need to carry on straight on. All pretty kind of standard stuff that you'd expect to see. Now I was using it alongside the Garmin Epix 2, and I was just using it, and I had the mapping screen running. Now in terms of the level of detail you're getting the mapping outside of that route, you're getting more in terms of what you're getting in the Garmin Epix 2, but obviously this is a more expensive watch, the Garmin, so probably a bit unfair to kind of compare. But in terms of the experience you're getting in terms of that mapping and navigation, it's absolutely fine. It worked fine for me. It got me where I needed to go. When I kind of veered off, it kind of said that I was off kind of route ultimately. And I got to the end, and my plan, my planned route was completed. You do have the option to reverse the route, so you can go back. So essentially it's like a track back mode that you see on a lot of watches, a lot of sports watches, and it's starting to appear on smartwatches as well. And from that point of view, it works absolutely fine. I do think it's weird that it isn't kind of built into, into when you go into a run and you have the option to use navigation. It seems a bit of an odd one that it wouldn't, have a dedicated mode for running. So, as I said, it's designed for hiking and cycling ultimately. You can use it for running. It's not designed for running, but it works absolutely fine for me. As I said, there will be some, I think, implications in terms of battery life, which I'll get into. But in terms of that support, in terms of what Samsung promised, it's worked fine for me so far. It just isn't designed for running yet, and maybe that's to come in terms of what Samsung will do down the line. So in terms of that first run, I essentially broke the run down into 2 parts. I really wanted to see how the kind of mapping and navigation support works, because that's really the key feature here. There's a little bit happening in terms of what else you're getting in terms of running features, but ultimately it feels very similar to what we got on the Samsung Galaxy Watch 4. Now, on the first part of the run, the distance tracking pretty much matched up with the Garmin Epix 2 that I was testing it against. And then on the way back, where I went just over 5K, I slightly changed the route back to kind of go a little bit longer, and there was a little bit more of a disparity in terms of distance tracking. It's kind of what I've seen with Samsung Galaxy Watches in the past, where they're a little bit indifferent in terms of that overall kind of tracking performance. I've always seen it that, you know, it's particularly in kind of longer runs where you start to see this real disparity in terms of that performance against a dedicated running watch. And, you know, I've only done a couple of shorter runs with it, but obviously I've had a bit of a mixed bag in terms of breaking those 2 runs up. So in terms of the heart rate monitoring, now Samsung is saying it's created a larger surface area for the sensors that it's using, those optical sensors, to ultimately improve the accuracy that you get from the heart rate monitoring on this watch. Now, I haven't had a great experience in terms of the heart rate monitoring on Samsung Galaxy Watches in general. It was the same with the Galaxy Watch 4. Now, in terms of those 2 short runs that I did, I can't say I've seen massive improvements on that front. Now, I was comparing it to a heart rate monitor chest strap, so a MyZone chest strap paired to the Garmin Epix. And I can kind of show you the data in terms of what I got in that, in terms of the comparison information in terms of those 2 runs. From the kind of average and max readings, even kind of on a steady pace run, or, you know, the second one was slightly quicker in parts, it still didn't quite add up in terms of what I got from a chest strap ultimately. So from that point of view, in the heart rate monitoring from the optical sensor, the heart rate sensor, it wasn't fantastic for me. But still plenty more testing to see how it holds up on kind of longer term runs and kind of longer distances as well. So in terms of battery life on the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro in that run, now I did break up the run into 2 runs, and on the first half of the run, I used the watch without the always on display, so I can kind of show you what I got in terms of the battery drop off. Now, when I switched back to an always on display, and obviously, you know, had those that mapping and navigation support on, the battery life clearly dropped off more, so it definitely has an impact in terms of that battery life. Now, in terms of the few days I've had with the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro so far, it definitely feels like it's performed better when I've used it outside of tracking time. So I'm finding I'm getting kind of 3 to 4 days with it. As soon as you start using the tracking features in it, you do see a noticeable drain in the battery life. It's something I've seen with previous Samsung Galaxy Watches. It was the same with the Galaxy Watch 4. You know, it does take a bit of a dent when you use that GPS kind of battery. But in terms of what I've seen in the kind of short run that I've done, when you don't have that always on display, obviously the battery life and the drop off is going to be less. In terms of when you do have it on and you are using those kind of mapping and routing features, the battery life does take a hit. So battery life for me, it looks like day to day it has probably improved, but in terms of when you're using those tracking features or you're using it for runs, it does take quite a bit of a hit. So initial thoughts on the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro, and you know, I think you really have to keep this in context of this being a smartwatch, and for people looking for a smartwatch that they want to also track their runs. And from that perspective, I'm not seeing a huge amount of difference in terms of that core running experience in comparison to the Galaxy Watch 4, which I didn't have an amazing time with. I didn't think it was the best smartwatch for running. Ultimately, I think Nick probably echoes those sentiments as well. Who, you know, and he'll be testing the Galaxy Watch 5 as well. In terms of those extra features that you're getting on the Watch 5 Pro compared to the Watch 5, now that routing and mapping navigation, you know, it's primarily not designed for running. You know, there's you know, it does work, but it looks like, you know, it's mainly designed for hiking. People who go out hiking, that's kind of where it kind of sits in terms of the data and the kind of way data is displayed on the watch. In terms of that experience, I mean, you can get, you know, the ability to upload routes and follow much simpler navigation or kind of maps in terms of that experience. I think of things like the Huawei Watch GT Runner, the Huawei Watch Fit 2, which is even cheaper than this, and you get that kind of functionality, which I think was very strong in my testing. If you look at kind of dedicated outdoor watches around this price, this is kind of over £400, over $400. You know, things like the Polar Gritta X Pro, you could probably shop around and find a Garmin Fenix 6, I would say, probably around this price. From that point of view, the navigation on those watches is much more robust. It's more centered or focused around running as well. It can be. Now you are going to get a better smartwatch experience on the Watch 5 Pro, I would say. It is Android only. Those two watches that I mentioned will work with iOS and Android. This still is Android only. You know, Samsung hasn't budged from that, so it's going to be an Android option. And in terms of that kind of running experience from a smartwatch that works with Android, I would say the Huawei watches work a bit nicer for me. I think it's more reliable in terms of that tracking. The level of features you're going to get from Huawei's watches as well, I think betters, and ultimately the kind of data and the reliability of data feels a little bit more, you know, solid as well overall. So what I will say with Watch 5 Pro is that, I mean, I haven't seen much here that I think is different from what I experienced in the Galaxy Watch 4, crucially. I quite like the design. I like the fact that you have those mapping and navigation features, but ultimately it's not really primarily designed for runners. And then battery life, I think it is better day to day. I think you're getting bigger battery life than what you got on previous Samsung watches, but when it comes to tracking, that does drain the battery life. The always on display does drain the battery life as well too. So maybe not those huge upgrades from a battery point of view when you need to put that kind of tracking to work. So yeah, plenty more running to do with the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro. I can't say I'm blown away by it just yet, but you know, I'm open to being changed once I've done a bit more testing. But yeah, those are my initial thoughts on the Samsung Galaxy Watch 5 Pro. So there you have it. That is our first run review of the Samsung Galaxy Watch 5 Pro. I do also have the Samsung Galaxy Watch 5. So does Nick. He is just waiting for an Android phone so he can start testing that out. So we will be doing a full review on both of these watches. So if you've got any questions about both of those watches, let us know in the comments. As always, like and subscribe, hit that little bell to find out about our latest videos. And yeah, we'll see you for the next Run Testers video.